Welcome back to Growth Purposes Only podcast with me, your host, Princess Serafina. Join us every other Thursday as we dive into our personal experiences that contribute to our spiritual growth. You can find us on all streaming platforms and our YouTube channel for Growth Purposes Only, no spaces. I pray that whoever is supposed to receive this message, that it reaches you and it blesses you. Today we have Melissa, also known as Santana Says, who is a licensed therapist on the show with us to talk about faith and mental health.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm good. The
Great.
sun is out, y'all, so I'm feeling much better, lighter.
Yeah. So normally in the beginning, I always have my guests explain how they came into their walk. So if you could share.
Absolutely. So I would definitely say my walk with God absolutely began when I was definitely most youngest in elementary school. So, and that's when I started my walk for me. And it was my safe space away from what was going on because my mother was was an alcoholic. I mean, she's still a recovering alcoholic. But at the time, she did, and she placed me in I was actually in a lot of different schools, and it wasn't even because we moved around a lot. There was always something going on. But she did place me in a private school, and I do remember loving the morals that they were instilling, all of these things. But I remember that I would take that so seriously, that I took it at home because I kind of wanted to create this bubble of protection around me with what was happening with her. And I know that I would often pray a lot for her and what was going on, and hopefully that she would find God in some way, or that she would eventually choose me, because I kind of felt like she would choose drinking over me often. Okay. And so those are the subject of a lot of my prayers. And I remember inviting her often to pray with me. She didn't always take me up on it, but I do remember one day where she did. But it was difficult because she accepted the offer then, but turned back to alcohol after. And so I remember thinking that's confusing. Why didn't she, why wasn't this sustainable? So, but I always took the walk with God so seriously that I had made my pact I did, even though it was not the popular option, but the whole, I was going to save myself for marriage. I was this is happening. So I was very much in that, did not like to date much, none of those things. Life did take its turn though. So, society.
Isn't it always?
Absolutely. So I would say that it got a little bit fragmented. I would say high school was still felt very strong, on and off, but it was college is when I feel like I got away from it. I would still go to church though, do the things. I feel like doing the motions, but I wasn't really practicing as well as I could have. And I was letting myself get started, especially because I was in a relationship that eventually became active in that one area that I said I was not going to do until marriage. So obviously that made things cloudy, once that happened. And I think it opened up a door that, I didn't want to go through, but once I opened it, I didn't know how to stop walking through it. So I did that. And then eventually I found God again as an adult. And as a mother. But what's interesting is God has also keeps showing up, to me in so many ways that I can't deny, that I'm okay, God, you clearly do not be playing. And it's just it's so undeniable that I'm yeah. I mean, I understand that not everybody probably believes, and we respect all faiths, but man, God, you can't tell me God ain't real with all of the things that have happened.
Yes. That's amazing. That's so good. I've heard a lot of different testimonies. I don't think I've ever heard something like this.
Yeah.
I think actually Brandy, her testimony was similar, but kind of different.
Right.
So do you feel you're how can I say this? Do you feel at some point your mother, who she was, impacted who you became as a mom?
Oh, most definitely. I would say a lot of what I'm doing is kind of trying to either reclaim, and I still think about how I felt when I was with her and the daughter that I was. And a lot of what I do is definitely trying to avoid that and just create a different experience for my daughters for sure. And I often do have that conversation with them. So yes, it is heavily influenced by what I went through with her, which I can understand better now.
Okay.
But it's still, it still doesn't take away from the fact that there was a lot that I desired that didn't occur. Then now I don't ever want them to have to want for those things. And so I strive really hard to stand in the gap.
Were you the only child?
It felt like it. So I actually have a brother who is 15 years older than me.
Okay.
And so like we obviously only related on so many teams. He we fought over the remote, you know what I'm saying? Like so like we have our little sibling rivalry, but a lot of things that we like were so polar opposite. And I grew up, a lot of people, strangers thought that he was my father because he's so much older and he has his presence over me. And then I'm tiny. But a lot of other people, I was either, if it wasn't that they saw me as his daughter, a lot of people only saw me as Paige's little sister. So like I was always under his shadow.
Yeah.
But for a while he left the house, and so it felt like I was an only child who didn't have anybody around. So there was a lot of times of just being by myself.
Good. So how did coming into being a therapist, like how does that come out of that?
Yeah, I would say it feels like home. That's the cool thing to me. So like I had always been fascinated by the mind and like how it operates. And I'm always like, looking, and then sociologically too. So I love me some sociology as well. Like put that together for me. Hello, dream. And so I, in college, studied psychology. I just didn't know how scientific it was. And so it's a lot more like testing, assessments, you know what I mean? Looking at things like that. And then sociology I liked because it was really the study of more like culture and like, and how we kind of operate in society and the norms and all that. So I definitely figured that I would love something in between that. But I went through every other job under the sun before that. Like I just was like, I tried after school programming, I did teaching, I did, very typical millennial. And as soon as I was done with the job, I was out. So I was like, yep, if it no longer served me, I was good to go. Or if there was some other opportunity. But then I was actually on the brink of getting into a master's of education program because by now, even though I did a lot of different jobs, they were always with youth. So I was like, all right, cool. I love me some youth. I love students. I think I relate to them in a really cool way, and I want to capitalize on that. Yeah. But I thought that meant Masters of Education. Maybe I'll be a principal or I'm going to take over a school. But I was talking to the recruiter of the program, and they're like, everything you're describing is counseling, though. Like, have you not considered that? And I was like, I guess I didn't. Like, I guess I thought that a lot of what I was doing was in that realm, but I didn't realize it was. So as soon as I did look into the counseling program and I'm reading on it and what I could do, I was like, oh yeah, this is me. So like, why did I not? And it was definitely one of the easiest programs to be a part of because I loved it so much. Like I loved all the classes, like it all just lined up. And now that I'm in it, like it is definitely confirmation to me that this is like where I would like to use my gifts and the way I want to help touch people for sure.
Absolutely. That's so good. It just reminds me of my own journey too as well. Like I've always, I don't know, I think I am tiny as well.
Yeah. Tiny but mighty.
So, right. Yeah. Right. Don't forget that part.
Yep.
But I don't know, like adults just always used to make me feel unwelcome.
Yeah.
But children just always embraced me. So I just was always like gravitated toward the babies, and I've always found myself like in education and daycares and teaching and something. And it wasn't until like now, like choosing this podcast, like being obedient in it, it's like I realized like, oh, adults aren't so bad. Actually.
Right. They're not.
They're
Exactly.
not. So I guess I'm just want to be universal in that aspect, just providing support in whatever ways that I can.
Yep.
So that is cool. So for me, this is a very interesting topic because I myself did therapy for like 2 years. I was like wanting to be in a relationship, and I knew that I suffered a lot of like hurt and pain from like past, like going from the idea of being a family and then just going out to this world. Like I've never been out ever until like a breakup with my family structure that I created with my daughters. So like I went from like being a wife to not being valued in these streets. Okay. So it was like very hard on my mental health. Like I started to see my value differently. And I think that in the dating culture and just in culture in general, like on the scenes and being out and stuff like that, I don't know what I thought it was. I thought I would be still viewed as the person I was in my relationship. So like that did like a real number on me, on my mentally and emotionally. So like I ended up getting in therapy myself. It was like the best 2 years of my life. Like,
I'm glad.
Like, I didn't want to leave, but I knew I was to the point where I was like, yeah, I'm just kind of just talking to her at this point.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm doing everything she said, but I just want to tell her what happened afterwards. Like,
Yes,
you know what
exactly.
I mean? But I really do see the value. So I want to know, how do you see mental health and faith complementing each other?
Ooh, okay. So for me, they are like inextricably combined. Like I didn't plan for that because I think I also what I'm glad I'm no longer do, but I was doing it, and I'm glad to call myself out on it. Is that I would like God would always be this thing that like I thought about, but it was always like this an aside thing. So I'm like, yeah, he there, like he's great. But then like, okay, but do you acknowledge him ever? You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, are you doing all that? I wasn't, and then as a result, I was letting a lot of other things occupy my life. So like the intrusive thoughts, the anxiety, living in fear, thinking that I was never gonna find another new man or whatever. Like I was just thinking like, oh well, it's just gonna always be like how
Yeah.
it was. So like it looked like that until I was able to put God at the center and realize that, wow, like he really helps me. Like you don't have to take all these things on. Like you doing that is because you're clearly rooted in earthly things and you're not, you know what I'm saying? You're not letting him do the work that he could do. And he always wanted to. So that was always interesting for me. Like the ways he kept showing up, the messages I kept getting was like, I've always been here. You know what I'm saying? You have not been seeking me out. I've never been too far away. And you keep taking all this stuff on. Like you always are over here fighting battles that you don't need to fight.
Listen.
You know, so like I definitely was like, let me get on my way with that because it's not helpful. And it's true, like I feel so much heavier throughout my days. And it is already a lot to take care of kids now. Don't get me wrong, as a single mama. You know what I'm saying? Right. So it is a lot, period. But it's like, do you need to make it harder though? I don't think so.
Right.
You know, so it's just like, can you please let me, help you with this? So that was step one. And it was so perfect because all of that occurred as I was getting my licensure to become a therapist.
So it was necessary for
Yes.
the process.
Oh, you already know. Yes, yes. So in order to really do that, and then once I went into it, I love that no matter what, every session I've had with people. I mean, now there are some that don't believe in God, so we like talk about, but we end up talking about God anyway. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, so and I do not try to push anything on them, nothing like that. I have one that likes to apologize to me though, because I think, oh no, he assumed because I got my degree from John Carroll that I like ascribe to that specific faith or whatever. Like I guess Catholicism.
Catholic, okay.
Yep. And they're a very private institution. But I was like, that first of all, that's not necessarily how my walk is. But even if it was, that has nothing to do with, how I can help you. But it was interesting. But everyone else, like even outside of that, it was just easily incorporated. Like they would tell me that that's where they're at. They would tell me that that was a goal of theirs. They would tell me that it was, because I service a lot of like domestic violence and sexual assault survivors. So first of all, they've been through the trenches. And so like, because abuse is not an easy thing at all to have gone through in any form or fashion. And a lot of them can tell me, articulated super well, the moments where they felt like God was there. It couldn't have been nobody else.
Yeah.
Because they were like, I should have died.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So like,
they acknowledge,
absolutely. And then I love being able to hold space for them and like, let's not only acknowledge that, but, lean into that.
Yeah.
And okay, how can we now make that part of, how you live out your life in a better way? You know what I mean? As you see that. So like for me, it's amazing. And even if you didn't have faith, which thankfully for me it is, it's part of, everything I do. But even for those who don't, you do need an anchor. You still need something. You definitely need something that grounds you. Absolutely. Because otherwise you're going to be because the storms come no matter what. And they don't ask you for permission. They're going to come, they're going to tussle, and your boat is going to go astray one way or another unless you have something, that helps you and helps you stay afloat. And I think that looks different for different people. But thankfully, all the people that I have been able to have, like it's all rooted in faith. And
That's really good. Part of my therapy journey, like the first year I did it without like my relationship with Christ. So it was just more so problem, solution. You know what I mean? Which was fine until another problem occurred, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it kept me like in this loop of dependency, or, I got to come back. Like it happened this time instead of that time. Like it happened different. And then like in our second year is when I, gave my life to Christ. And I was just like, wow, it's really different now because I will be telling my therapist about like my faith principles in the midst of our sessions. Like, well, I believe this, and I don't know. It allowed me to show up differently in those situations because my identity was backed by something else. Like versus problem solution, it was like problem solution, and I'm a child of God. Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it was just like, okay. So I definitely feel like, in our walk, we are definitely co-workers with Christ. So just knowing that, okay, I can go to therapy and still have faith because this is me doing that work part, faith without work. So like, yes, I want God to heal me in these areas, but I also know that I need to do something in the natural to kind of like help him in that. So like whatever I'm going through, I can find like a scripture to kind of ground me in that healing process. And that's really, really good. I know you brought up, like, he said he doesn't believe in God. I think that's always so funny because you technically do believe in God because you believe that there isn't a God, but it's always like sometimes, but you acknowledge that there is a God, but you don't believe in him. So you technically believe in him. It's weird. But
that's true.
Yeah.
And that's funny because I did talk about that with my daughters because they also have someone in their life who also doesn't believe, but is also the type of person that don't even like them believing in Santa. I was like, okay, now we don't got to take everything away. You know what I mean? Like there's got to be something. But it's funny because we said that exact same thing. I was like, but there's still an acknowledgement on the other side of that. So, and then, and there's hurt. So that's what I've been noticing. A lot of people that have said that to me, or at least in my experience, it was definitely because something occurred. And in this person in particular, though, what I find fascinating is that they're actually from Spain. And so like Spain is where Catholicism, I mean, is widespread. We're talking about like almost most of the population is Catholic. And they have the really cool, like, the architecture, like the Catholic churches are really beautiful to look at. I mean, they are. And so but he got to see a lot of abuse firsthand. Play out and almost became victim to it. So I'm like, in that case, totally understand, but your walk doesn't have to look like it. But it's funny because even like you said, not only do I love seeing the acknowledgement piece, but I also kind of think like I keep like, it keeps breaking down a little bit the wall. So I'm like, I think we're going to get something.
Yeah, I think maybe we don't know the same God or something.
Exactly.
Or maybe you've been like looking at it this way, you know what I mean? Because it's a relationship. It truly is a relationship.
It is.
And I think a lot of people go into it just looking at the rules and the laws and the obligations. But like truly it's a relationship through the storms and out of the storm. So different. Just, people just have to approach things with like a renewed mind is what Christ tells us.
Absolutely.
We're new creatures in Christ.
That part, and I also just think what's hard though is that there are some individuals who don't know that and who have weaponized it though. Like, so I do think, and that church hurt is real too.
It is.
Like that's also not lost. I mean, I think that's what I was hearing him, like kind of give, a voice to. But, and then there's so many other people in society too, where that's happened. And it's just unfortunate though that God has to be the collateral damage in that though. So it's just like, but that's not really his fault. I mean? That was somebody else's fault, who didn't realize how he really is and how he truly operates. And so like healing that wound is also like.
But that's where that relationship piece comes in because you know how we are with our significant others. We might tell somebody what they've done wrong. And that person might not forgive them, but you may. So it's just like understanding like the dynamics of a relationship and can't just be going word of mouth because you might miss your blessing just listen to what other people saying about something. You know what I mean? And then like church hurt is real. Like I've experienced different things, not necessarily church hurt, but like with just leadership in the church. You know what I mean?
Yes, more than anything.
And I just had to understand God's grace because it's for them too. And it's sufficient enough for whatever I've been through. So just, gotta kind of like take what you get. Like what they tell me is chew the meat, spit out the bones.
Okay.
Like, take the good and kind of like, because we are human, like we are creatures of habit. We do things in our flesh, and sometimes that does overpower some of our faith. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Because I be want to walk things out the Christian way, and then my flesh be like, but no.
Exactly.
So it's a give or take. But what are some common misconceptions you see in Christian spaces about mental health?
Okay.
Because for me, I was in church one time and they were using, it's a psalm that he heals us from all our iniquities and forgives us for all our iniquities and heals us from all our diseases. And diseases can be transcribed to mental too, right?
Absolutely.
And it's just like, I remember the pastor at the time was basically saying, you don't need a therapist. All you need is God. Like, you know what I mean? So I think
say that.
Touch on that first.
Oh, please. Because yes, when you said the question that way, this is exactly where my heart and my mind went because I've heard that. And I just think, and it is a little bit unfortunate because as a therapist, I'm like, well, first of all, you don't think, you know what I mean? Like I deserve to like show up, like and have this job. Because honestly, it's almost saying that like your job isn't necessarily necessary because people should be following God. And so like, that's one piece of it is that I think like, you can effectively like use it to help process. Because at the end of the day, what I find interesting about therapy is that I think it's like a reflecting tool. So like I love calling myself a mirror. Like you have the tools. Like you definitely have the insight. I'm just gonna help you bring it out of you. You know what I mean? We're just gonna talk about it and provide a platform so that you can then see it, bring it to the light, and then use it. And then like you said in your case, like you graduate. Like eventually you don't necessarily need it all your life. You just become, you could you could fall back on it. You know what I mean? I remember what was discussed and then continue to practice it. But I think, yes, it's a little unfortunate when I've heard that. And because it's just interesting that the two can't coexist. Because I think it can provide a beautiful marriage, actually, of you being able to look at your mental health and, and bring God, and make sure that God is at the center of it. Just like he should be at the center of anything that you do.
Absolutely.
And because mental health is a very big thing to tackle. A lot of people don't have the tools necessary to do it. They don't have the language, around it. And I think it's a very courageous thing to either take on, participate in, or confront. And so like, yes, you need God in that, but God also uses people. And so I just think like, I definitely think that I love being used whenever I can. And if anything, I want to put myself in position to be used more by God. And I definitely think therapy is a way to do it because I don't know that I would have met these people otherwise.
I literally was going to say that too. Like, I feel like just me being in community is community. Like, it's to me, especially because we know that spiritual warfare is in the mind.
Right.
So why not have people with that background that know how the mind works and kind of use that in the faith aspect to combine the two. I think that it's a great form of community. Like you said, it's someone that you can trust that technically can't tell your business, you know what I mean?
Right.
At least not with the name, if that, you know what I mean? We could use scenarios, but they're not identifying it's you.
Right.
And there's like that safe space. And then honestly, you have room to just be yourself and just work towards a progressive space. Honestly, I don't have anything against it. It's been something I would recommend to anybody. Like I've even had 2 of my daughters in therapy just because like if you can get to the root while you're at the age, because we came into adults going into therapy,
Yeah.
And children, if you can stop it there, maybe it can stop a lifelong worth of trauma. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
If you acknowledge it at the root, like, that phase of my life probably impacted you a lot. Let me get you some help. Because as I'm coming out of it, you may not be the effects of it. So I had to do that for my oldest daughter, and I've definitely seen a big turnaround for her. Like she took a lot of weight on being the oldest child, and I just think the oldest always gets like a lot of the parenting weight in general. And I felt like she was disconnected from the world because like her enjoyment of being a child just wasn't there because she had to take it on.
Yes.
So now I'm in a better space of like, look, I mean, obviously I'm still a single parent, you know what I mean? But I got your back. Like this isn't your only battle. And I'm sorry if I ever, even apologizing, it would be times we'd be crying together. I'd be like, this is so liberating and so freeing because I'm able to acknowledge that I messed up, but only through therapy because I would justify everything. But I had to be, like you said, that mirror, be able to see myself and know that, no, I messed up.
Right.
And here's an opportunity for us to work through that. And now let's work on something for you so you don't grow into either resentment, bitterness, because it had a really hard, I feel like it impacted her relationship with her sisters because she had to. And now it's just like, I'm like, well, no, like I want us to be this family and you feel this way towards your sisters. And how can I help you fix that? Because, they're just people too. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
So I definitely feel like it's an empowerment tool.
Yes.
Walking in faith, you need that because like I said, everybody mentally, we're not equally made.
Yeah, no.
So like some of us are not all the right in the head and
I mean, yes. I know. And then just telling someone that, because, and I know that like prayer or like faith without works, prayer without works isn't, is dead. And so like, but I feel similar like that with your mental health journey. So it's like, you got to be able to put it into practice. So it's like, God is the one that can take away all of that. But like, can I get help to know how to do that? Like, could there be somebody that could help me make sense of that? And I just feel like that's what, could be missed if we overwrite it and say, and I just think too, like it's such a good compliment to God because I'm in there praising God with him, so it's just like, and I love it because like one of the favorite sessions I had with someone was, she was, going back, into bad habits, which a lot of us do, what I mean? So we're in that cycle and I was reminding her, I was like, do you think God would want that for you though? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and you told me yourself where you wanted to be with God and how like God sees you and how you should see yourself. And so it's just like, that's why I love it. That it's just one way to really, get that same concept, but and it hits home better, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it ain't gonna be any other way. But I was also gonna say the oldest thing, oh my gosh, I'm just so glad you brought that up because I have 3 babies too, which is
Yeah.
crazy because we have so many things in
Yes.
common.
Literally.
But so many. It's crazy. Guys work. I'm telling you, guys
Right.
work. But it's just my oldest, I thought the same. It's funny because I almost was like, I don't know if there's a book on that I'm gonna be writing, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But like it's just too much on that. But we're gonna have to come back to that for sure. But it's like, yes, that weight that they carry is unique.
Yeah.
Because my middle child be stressed too sometimes. Because
Yeah.
she the peacemaker too. She be trying to make sure everything's right, whatever. But I saw the oldest, man. I seen like so much more that she took in, so much more that she heard, that she cares about, that she carries. And I don't want that on her, but I get that it's almost unavoidable because she was with me from the start.
Yeah.
So it's just like, dang, you saw a lot
Yeah.
that I can't really take away from you. And I don't know that I need to take it all,
Yeah.
but can we make sense of that for
Yeah.
you so that it's not staying with you?
Yeah. And also acknowledging that we're growing. You
Yes,
know what I mean?
we
So
are.
like we're not in that space that we
No.
started. We're in this space of like, flourishing at this
Yes.
point. So I need you to kind of like loosen up. It's okay.
Yes.
Because I had to tell her like, it's okay for them to be kids. It's okay for them to be who they are. You know what I
Right.
mean? You can correct them in love. I think the message goes across is misheard or mismanaged through them because it's just too motherly and you're not in that position.
No.
But you're like, I used to laugh and joke and call her my co-parent sometimes.
Yes. I was like, girl, let me be the mom.
Yes.
But yeah.
But I'm like, and she wrote me a note for her 8th grade promotion. They had to write a letter to someone who has helped them in their education. And I literally wept a night because I was trying to read it throughout the day over and over. I'm like, I couldn't find the time. And then when I got home, like at the end of the day, after the party was over, I opened it and read it. And she was like, I really do need to take notes from you on how you deal with my sisters because like I have a lot more grace for them because I just understand. And I think she's in a place, she just wants everything to be right because she's seeing all the ways it may have been wrong. And, and I was the oldest. So I relate to it. You know what I mean? But we just had a lot of different experiences, but some of the same as well.
I agree.
So one of my favorite biblical stories that normalize like struggle is like David in the Bible, just things that he went through, even with like Saul and even in the Psalms, like a lot of the Psalms are from David and he's weeping because the people who are unrighteous are winning and having all those things. So even just adding that piece of just knowing that faith and mental health are one and the same because his cries out for help were just because of the things that he was dealing with mentally and seeing and just not having that outside of these Psalms, like having a therapist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wonder what life would have been like for him if he
Yes,
could have just,
exactly.
God could have used the prophet and made him a therapist that time. So just kind of adding that piece for those who struggle with seeing faith and mental health as like a co-working alignment with God in their walks. So I have this scripture, and I'm just guarding your thought life. It's in Philippians 4:8. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any moral excellence, if there is anything praiseworthy, dwell on those things. And the reason why I brought that scripture, because that reminds me of mental health. A lot of us like harp on the negative things going wrong in our life. And I think that's where the therapy and things like that kind of change and shift our perspective. That's where that renewed mind comes in.
Right.
You know what I mean? We want to dwell on the things that is going right. Always think of that scenario when Jesus is in the boat and he's sleeping during the storm and they're panicking, like, how are you sleeping through this? And it's just like, that is how we had to walk through our storms in life and dwell on the things. And I think gratitude also helps me and grounds me, like when everything is going wrong. Well, thankful. I was watching Straw last night and all the stuff that was happening to her. Yes. I was like, well, at least she got a car. And then I was taking my cousin's hair down. She was like, yeah, at least she got it. Like everything was going wrong. And I found one thing for her to be, grateful for. It's still a crazy movie, but
it was.
It was just even in those moments, seeing like people going through different things, just having that moment of gratitude really shifts
Yes.
you know, how we see the world and, you know, how we can lean on God's provision as well.
Absolutely. And yeah, and that's what was lacking. Because I would definitely
Yeah.
say, like, it was easy for her to snap because I feel like she didn't have anything that was
Yeah.
kind of like centering her. So yeah, and that was definitely a very big mental health movie. That's what I loved about it. I was like, that definitely shows how the, you know, combination of factors, and she depersonalized, which I thought was really interesting that they showed that, how she saw her, when she said that she saw herself, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
something broke in me at the hospital, and it was like I was watching myself, and then we realized in the movie that that was kind of playing out.
Yeah.
But that happens with trauma.
Literally, because it was at that point when she said that line, because up until then, I'm really thinking like she about to go get this medicine. She's trying to get this
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
And then at that point, it really hit me like, dang, that could make someone like snap and just lose it. And she just been out of her mind because even at the bank and even during these interactions, she's like out of it. Like she's not
there.
truly
No.
present. And she's just like, I just need this over with. Like I just need this stuff to go away.
Right.
And I think that just having something to root ourselves on and ground ourselves,
Correct.
not even I believe having something to ground and root ourselves on kind of, you know, helps us. I remember starting this podcast. I was so nervous. Like I'm telling you, you could ask Watts. I would be shaking.
Yep.
I would be so nervous because I've never been on a place where I've had to, or a platform or anything where I've shared my own personal shortcomings.
Yes.
It's like ripping off a Band-Aid every single day. And some days I would want to cry. Other days I want to stop. And it was just scripture. Joshua 1:9 was one of the first scriptures that kind of stuck with me in my journey with Christ, was like, be strong and courageous. Like I would say that sometimes, like, and just having that to fall, because he's with me. Like, you know what I mean? What am I afraid of? And I think, and I know that that kind of moves throughout life with me. Like as I'm going through different things, a different scripture may, God says this, or, you know, I start analyzing situations a lot differently with my faith background. Like, yes, it might be mentally exhausting,
of course,
but having this as a source and as like the foundation changes everything.
Oh, absolutely.
Changes everything.
Yes. And I was going to say, and shout out, because I also got the chance to see your babies get baptized. And I just think it was really sweet that when they share what they wanted, you know, like what motivated them, like when your daughter did say that she wanted to follow your example, I was like, that was so everything.
They hold me so accountable. Like, they be like, if I'm listening to something, like, because I'm getting more familiar with like Christian rap, like, because I like a good tune. I was a dancer. I can't help it. So I need some beats. Like, I don't need everything to be weepy sorrow all the time.
Right.
So they'll be like, is this gospel? Like, like they're always checking in to hold me accountable, or, you know what I mean, making sure, because, and it just reaffirms, like, this is not even about me.
Yeah.
Like, this is not about me. This is for them, about them. And everything is intentional with God. So as much as I be thinking like, oh, I'm so thankful I have God in my life, blah, 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 it's more so about the people that I come in direct contact with. They need to see that liberation. They need to see that freedom. Otherwise, they're like in bondage and they don't see that way out. So having that as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, so my next question is, how can listeners know when it's time to seek professional help?
I would definitely say, one, if there's even a part of you that's considering it, right? Like, you know, like something, because the other thing that we do too often in our lives is to ignore our intuition. It be there for a reason. It is built into us. And so too many times we, you know, and it's hard to accept the reality of a situation. That I understand as well. So I think it becomes easier for us to put excuses around it or to minimize it, because the reality is a bit stark and it's, you know, it's a lot. So I understand that, but that concern came up because something was driving it. So I think, like, if that already is happening, that's one piece. But I would definitely say that if it's hard to carry out your regular life, you know, and you're feeling like the weight of it is too much for you to bear, then I definitely think like that might be a good time to get somebody, because it should never feel that, you know, so like so heavy that you can't carry it by yourself. Like I definitely think that that's a good time to know that, some assistance is needed, and that it's not a bad thing. So I just want to make sure that, you know, we can't emphasize that enough, that it is not, because when you're sick, you would get medicine. You know what I mean? Like if you got hurt, you would go to the doctor. Like you are allowed to get assistance mentally as well. And like there are people, you know, that can help you with that. I definitely think the right trained ones as well, because we also have a lot of different type of people that help nowadays. Like we got life coaches, we got different, you know, and I'm not nothing against it, but I also think like people with the right background too, you know what I mean? And just making sure that can help you the right way.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly believe that. I think for me, when I got in, I valued perception of myself. So I was dating someone at the time and he was like, you should probably get some help. And I was like, oh, okay, like,
Right.
dang, all
Right.
right. But it was like, so it was one of the, and that was toxic in itself, but
Right.
it was one of the best things I could have like done based on that interaction.
Yes.
So if nothing else came from that, I got in therapy.
Yeah.
And then I realized, even when I got in therapy, I realized he was the problem. I'm like, as I'm trying to heal
Right.
myself, you're still calling me crazy. Like, that's not right. You don't do that. Because you
Correct.
see someone actively engaging in some type of, but then it really turned out to you're a manipulator and you don't want, I see things for what they are now. And now
Yeah.
you want to push it back on I'm delusional. But, you know, it's okay.
Absolutely not.
Because at that rate, my therapist had my back. So
Yeah, I
it's
know that's
also one thing I will say, like, even finding a therapist, I didn't go into it looking for any specifics. I know a lot of people need specific things for
Yep.
them for a therapist, but I went in for me, how I know it worked. I wanted it. And I think
Yeah.
that is the biggest piece that I can like offer
Oh,
anyone.
absolutely.
If you actually want change, if you want to see a better version of yourself, then that is absolutely the perfect time to like
Right.
reach out and like kind of look at your options out there. Insurances cover them. There's some people who do things out of in-kind donations or
Right.
in-kind services. There's so many different ways to get that help.
Absolutely.
So don't feel as if that, because you're not financially in a position to afford it, that services are not available to you. There's so many ways to get and seek professional help.
Absolutely. Yes. There's definitely always a way and resources available and ways to afford. So I agree. And I'm hoping that some of them have been interrupted with some funding, but that they'll be reestablished. But there are a lot of organizations fighting because we actually, even my agency has like partnerships with organizations that pay for the services and they do it. So they foot the bill. So there's definitely a way, you know, and
Yeah.
if you get involved with them first, that's what opens the door to it.
Absolutely. Okay, and our last thing that I would want to ask is, what would you say to someone who feels alone, ashamed, or afraid to speak up?
If you are feeling any of those things, you know, and if you're struggling, I definitely want you to know that you are absolutely not the only person that has or will to face that struggle. And I definitely want you to know that there are many individuals who want to help you, and it's because they have struggled themselves. Because I can definitely say that I'm one of them. I am so into this work because of what I've been through. You know what I mean? And so like, and everything. And I definitely think that we should, as a society, suspend judgment more, but I know we don't. And I know that that plays a role in how individuals do see themselves and the kind of help that they seek out. Because unfortunately, if they're chastised for it, then of course they're not going to want to do it. Or if they're going to be seen differently by in their individuals. And tying back to also something you just said, I even met with somebody as recently as like today who was just saying that their significant other literally said, well, I'm not like you. I'm not someone that needs someone else to help me with my problems. And it's like, first of all, that's hard to hear
Yeah.
from somebody that you are in a relationship with, any kind, whether that is romantic, platonic, or otherwise. But also that they are essentially saying to you that something is wrong with you if you want to go get that help, when it's really quite the opposite. It takes a lot, as I said earlier, courage to even pursue something like this. And it is an amazing step that you're taking for you to even want somebody to engage you in that kind of help. And I find it an honor. So honestly, whenever somebody comes to me, believe that that's something that I don't take lightly, because you first of all, it was a lot for you to even do it, but it's going to be a big process to take on. So I definitely want to help you as much as I can to be able to do that. So yes, anybody that's feeling that, I definitely want you to remember those things.
Absolutely. And I completely agree. I think that we have to go into things kind of not selfless, because it's not a selfless thing to seek help, because everybody else around you is impacted by your current state
Correct.
and stability. So it's very selfless to do it. And like she said, it's very brave. Like it's not something that anybody just does and just admits that they are weak in certain areas in life.
No.
So it's actually a moment of just like resilience. It's actually a moment of like courage, and it should be embraced that way instead of the opposite.
Right.
And that is the trick of the enemy, to let you feel that you can do things and go through things without seeking anyone else. Jesus in the garden still called on God in those moments. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think that even to see that in his weakness, sweat and blood, about to get crucified on the cross, still sought help.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that just goes to show you that he was the way and the leadership for us to follow, just those walking in their walks, that there's okay to seek someone else when you feel like it's too heavy.
Absolutely.
And so Share your contact info, your socials.
Yes.
Also, she has Santana Says, and tell us a little bit about
Yes.
that.
Oh yes, absolutely. So yes, we share a wonderful producer in common,
Yes.
Mr. Watts. But yes, I have Santana Says. So that is a podcast where I love to sound off on these things. And so like yourself, it was something that I was shaking in my boots when I first did it.
Yes.
But I do love it. And it's definitely very therapeutic. It is part of my therapy now.
Yes.
To definitely like engage in it. I love the people that come on that are willing to share their story live, you know, like in front of people and in front of an audience. But it's been amazing. And so on Santana Says, I do talk a lot about their mental health concepts that I pair around different themes, but they do center around violence prevention. And so it's a lot about like healthy relationships. And I do have a lot of survivors that come on and talk about their stories, how they're overcome it, and a lot of different things that we like to touch on, you know, in those areas. So that can be found also on all streaming platforms, but it's also on YouTube and on most social media channels. I am Santana Says with 1_ at the end. So yeah, Santana Says, no space in between, but 1_ at the end. And it's coming out eventually, but I also do have a business called The Power to Be LLC. And so, you know what I mean? I'm trying to get her out there. So she'll soon have her own page as well. But like that will also have a little bit more, but that is where I do more of the therapy pieces, the education, the workshops and all of that. So I'm, you know, pouring more into that. Yes,
Period.
God gonna
Let's
shine his
go.
favor on that. But yes, I'm excited because that's what, you know, we're growing.
Yes, and we love that. And I just want to thank you all again for tuning into another episode of Growth Purposes Only. Remember, you are not alone on this journey.
not
It
at
is
all.
spiritual, not personal. Grow gracefully.
Amen. Thank
All
y'all.
right, girl. Thank you.
Thank you.